The Pat Mayo Experience.
Pat Mayo Experience. Pat Mayo Experience. Pat Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, Week 10 DraftKings ownership projections, GPP pivot plays, and some updated spreads that we've seen move throughout the week. I want to remind everyone to smash the like button. That's step one. And if you do want to get into the draw for 20 DK dollars given away live on Monday's waiver wire and recap show, you hit that like button, you leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section and tell me which running back you think will be the highest owned in the Millionaire Maker, and give me a percentage along with that. We're tracking a few right now, and it looks like it's shaping up to be pretty close. It's going to be a high-end guy. It's going to be one of the chalk low-end guys. I guess we'll find out once the tournament actually starts. But hey, this way you can get into a draw. And do not forget, I am live Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Garion will be in studio with me, as will Tim Andacust, which has the makings of just a horrible show. But hey, you can come into the chat, you can troll Tim, it'll all work out. Joining me to break this down position by position using the FanShareSports.com tagging system to project the ownership for the Week 10 Millionaire Maker from DK Live, it's DJ Jazzy Jeff Ulrich. What's up?
Not too much, yeah. I haven't heard that nickname since like grade 9 or something. That's old school. I like it, yeah.
See, that's how we know you're Canadian. When you say grade 9, you got to say ninth grade. That's the American way to say it.
That's true, yeah. That's true. Most people don't catch that. That's very true.
That's dead giveaway right there.
It's just one of those weird things between America and Canada. You don't pick up on unless you really pay attention. But yeah.
All right, let's get into running backs. Right off the top, based on the FanShareSports.com tagging system right now, the 3 running backs with the most tags of the week: Melvin Gordon, Kareem Hunt, and David Johnson. I'm also projecting Todd Gurley, Alvin Kamara, and I said David Johnson. I meant Duke Johnson, sorry. Melvin Gordon, Kareem Hunt, and Duke Johnson. Todd Gurley, Alvin Kamara, and Dion Lewis should all carry around 15% ownership as well. David Johnson, also a contender to do that. What do you make of this chalk? Do you think that somehow Melvin Gordon will be higher owned than Todd Gurley? That seems strange.
Yeah, it is a little bit strange. I mean, I sit down and think about it. I mean, the first thing that stuck out to me about Melvin Gordon this week was it's a big price jump, and I should probably just take the savings on Gurley, but you start to think about the matchup more and more and what Melvin Gordon's really done. I mean, he's basically almost performed at the same level as Todd Gurley this year. So why shouldn't they almost be the same price this week? Because Melvin Gordon's got like the matchup of the century, right? So against a Raiders run defense, it's horrible, and they've quit. So it's at the same, like I get it now. I guess I'm saying I'm there on Melvin Gordon. I think he should probably be the highest owned running back of the week. Doesn't mean you necessarily have to go there. I mean, I think Keenan Allen's in a really good spot too. So taking the pass game in that situation makes a lot of sense to me too. But I get it as him as the highest tag. I think it's well deserved personally.
Well, the big thing right now is that you can see Melvin Gordon carry like 8 to 10% more ownership in the Millionaire Maker than Todd Gurley. That would just put me primarily on Todd Gurley. And although this matchup is great for Melvin Gordon, he did perform fantasy-wise the first time around at home against the Raiders, but he did have like 17 carries for 55 yards in that game. He got it all done through the air, 62 yards receiving, ended up scoring on a 1-yard touchdown run. So he got there, but that's not the sort of game that you want to see against Oakland. Like, he needs to smash. And with the pricing being so close, that I think I just lean Gurley every time.
No, and look, especially for big field tournaments, I'm there with you. I mean, if you're going to get Gurley at 8 or 10% less owned this week, and maybe even a bigger gap, because I mean, we have names like Kareem Hunt down there too. Hunt, Melvin Gordon, maybe even David Johnson to some extent. It's going to suck ownership down from Gurley. So, the spread between Gordon and Gurley might even be bigger than we're making out. I think 5 to 8% is like a conservative guess. It could get like to 10, 12% gap, which is a pretty big gap for having Todd Gurley at lower ownership. So no, I'm there with you. I think Gurley is someone you want a piece of everyone's going to jump off him for 1 week.
Well, everyone else is just kind of paying up. They're trying to sandwich two of these high-end running backs together, at least based on the ownership projections. I have Kareem Hunt projected around 30%. That would be the highest owned running back on the slate. So if that you want to make that your guess for the draw, you can see how wrong I am after he doesn't end up being around 30%, the highest owned running back. But he's going to be chalky. Kamara is going to be chalky, like over 15%. So the two that are falling right in that area, one is Joe Mixon, the other one is James White. They're both going to be like 5% owned. I like Joe Mixon a lot. I know it's not the greatest matchup against the Saints, and game script-wise being 6-point dogs at home, you could see a situation where he's just not going to get that many carries on the ground, and a lot of people are just paying for Tyler Boyd as it is, so they're not paying for Joe Mixon. Now, usually when we think about pivots, we think about position to position, like, oh, let's not play Kareem Hunt at 30% ownership, let's just pivot down to Joe Mixon at 5% ownership, and boom, that's a very logical pivot. But you could pivot off of Tyler Boyd, who's right around the same price as Joe Mixon, and hopefully it's Mixon, the one that smashes, and Boyd busts, and boom, you're way ahead of the competition.
Yeah, Mixon is interesting. I mean, obviously he's coming off a pretty good week, and then the bye, so you don't get a price break. I mean, I guess that's going to keep his ownership low, though, right? So he does fall in a weird spot. I mean, like you said, everyone's going to be trying to get these bigger names, like two of Hunt and Gurley, or two of Hunt and Gordon, or something like that. And then they're probably going to go value hunting for their flex or something, to Dion Lewis, maybe Duke Johnson. So if you're going to be contrarian at running back this week, I think going with mid-tier guys, starting at Mixon and going down into the 6K range or even the 5K range as well is probably going to really differentiate you. And there are, Mixon is the sort of obvious name that I think among the 7K range that's going to be lower owned. I think I'm a little bit more interested in like the 5K range, like a guy like Tevin Coleman, maybe Tariq Cohen for a bounce back. Those guys interest me a little bit more just because I don't have to pay up as much. And if Mixon busts or Gio Bernard gets involved this week because he's probably going to play, it doesn't cost me as much. So yeah, I definitely see the appeal of Mixon. I'm probably going to try and go somewhere else, though, personally.
Well, with Mixon's usage, even with Gio Bernard back, when we've seen Mixon and Bernard healthy at the same time, it's still been almost 100% Mixon. Mm-hmm. You'd hope that Bernard doesn't come in and take away anything from the passing game for Mixon, but even if you can project him out for 4 to 6 targets in a pass-happy script, and he would still get the goal line touches, if there are any for Cincinnati, I think Joe Mixon is shaping a lot up to be like James Conner was against Baltimore, where it's a high-usage, volume back that gets the goal line work, all the carries, and is used in the receiving game. He just happens to have the worst matchup of all these guys at the top, and usually that's a recipe for a guy to come in at low ownership and absolutely go off and swing a week.
Yeah, no, look, the usage for Mixon is there, even with Gio in the lineup. It's there to have a big week. So I definitely agree with you from that perspective. It is kind of a letdown spot, too, when you think about it for New Orleans. They're just coming off the big win against the Rams. Obviously got to go on the road now against Cincinnati. So it's a tougher spot. It's definitely a letdown spot. If Cincy jumps out a little bit quick, Mixon's just going to get more work too, right? So, no, I see the appeal. Like I said, I'm a little bit more interested in like a guy like Tevin Coleman because I just think his matchup is better. But Mixon has the same amount of appeal, and he might even get him at lower ownership.
So the guys in the $6,000 area are the ones that no one is really owning. Like David Johnson, I have projected between like 12 and 16%. But the other two guys in the same game, Fournette's coming back, and then there's Marlon Mack. I think it's super risky and very dicey to play Fournette, but I'm going to have him in a few tournament lineups. And the fact that no one is playing Mack, and we still need to wait on his health to make sure that he's going to play, but I feel like this game is going to be higher scoring than a lot of people predict just because Indy plays so fast that if Fournette is back and he's healthy, we're in a situation where if he was this price against Indy, you would play him 100% of the time. So you kind of have to gamble that he is 100% healthy. His usage goes back up to what it was. But this is a spot where you could basically be a week early on Fournette. It could bust in your face, but that's something you have to be willing to deal with when you're playing a giant scale tournament.
Yeah, I think of those two, I agree. I'd take Fournette as well. There's just more likelihood that Jacksonville's going to give him the ball a ton because Blake Bortles has been so bad, right? With Indy, Andrew Luck is playing well. So, they also have a couple other running backs in the mix. So there's a lot of chance. There's not necessarily like a lock that Marlon Mack's going to get all the goal line work or get a ton of red zone touches. If Fournette is healthy, he's going to get a ton of work in this game. Like, I don't even think it matters the game script because Jacksonville is done with the Blake Bortles show. Like, And historically, when Fournette's been healthy too, they've given him the ball over passing a lot too, right? So I agree. I think of those two, I'm definitely on Fournette. I think obviously he's got some risk associated with him. We're not 100% sure if he's 100% healthy, but you'd like to think that after a bye week, after sitting out that long, he's healed, right? So, and then I'm in on David Johnson personally. I mean, the Kansas City has been just as bad as Atlanta against running backs. He's still only 6,800. He's not uber chalky. I get that there's some risk here too. It's Arizona, but you got to figure new OC had a bye week. I think David Johnson's for a big week, so I really like David Johnson too.
So in the $5,000 area, you mentioned Coleman. The two guys that everyone is gravitating towards. One is Nick Chubb, and the other one is Aaron Jones against Miami. You like Coleman better than those two? Because I'm kind of with you. I think I like Cohen the best of the $5,000 guys.
Yeah, and I'm on Cohen too. And Nick Chubb, again, he's just not really doesn't do anything in the pass game. So we're going to see another Duke Johnson game. I mean, it kind of seems likely against Atlanta, right? So, Nick Chubb he's obviously got upside in the matchup, but he comes with a little bit more risk. And I still think he's going to garner some decent ownership. Aaron Jones, I get that it's a good spot. Like it's Miami, the kind of like a bottom 5, bottom 8 run defense. But Jamal Williams is still there. He's still like a better all-around back, in my opinion. He fumbles less. So I don't know. I think Aaron Jones is a little bit risky. You also have, the Aaron Rodgers factor. Devontae Adams could catch like 2 or 3 touchdowns there. So, and just kind of make Aaron Jones useless. So I like Tevin Coleman and Cohen, Tariq Cohen better than Jones for sure. I see the upside in Chubb, but I'm not really overboard on Aaron Jones this week.
When we get to wide receivers, I got some breaking news here for you. Did you see this Dez Bryant stuff?
I did not. What happened?
He blew out his Achilles in practice.
No.
That didn't last long.
I shouldn't laugh. That's horrible. But oh my God, that's jeez.
Yeah. They fear it could be a torn Achilles right now. And Marlon Mack has now been confirmed that he will play this week against Jacksonville. So in the sub $5,000 range, this is where it gets tricky because we had a big discussion on the show last week about chalk cheap running backs versus chalk cheap wide receivers. And the move is usually play the cheap chalk running backs, fade the cheap chalk receivers in tournament, like the Cortland Sutton and DJ Moore experience. Did not turn out well for anyone, like who couldn't see that one coming from a mile away. Like it takes so much for a wide receiver to pay off his value because they are not controlling the balls that come to them. At least in the running game, you can pencil in some volume. So Duke Johnson, I have projected to be around 17% owned in the Millionaire Maker. I have Dion Lewis projected for more than 20%. Do you have a preference between those guys? Because Chris Carson is a game time decision. I mentioned this a lot last week that, hey, if Carson doesn't play, Mike Davis becomes an absolute smash. The problem was Chris Carson was active, but then he got hurt not 2 plays into the game, but he got hurt in the first half. Then it was all Mike Davis from that point out. Mike Davis's ownership at the moment is being suppressed because we're still not sure. Like Chris Carson is a true game time decision. He's in the late set of games. You'd have to late swap onto him or at least plug in Mike Davis and then have someone to swap off to. So he's a perfect guy to put into your flex spot, but I like Mike Davis if there's no Chris Carson more than I like the other two.
Yeah, I don't know if I like Mike Davis more necessarily, but I definitely get it from an ownership perspective. I think of those two, Duke Johnson, Dion Lewis. I would say Duke probably has I don't even know. I would say Dion Lewis definitely has the better floor. Let's put it that way. So I would be more inclined to just eat the chalk with Dion Lewis of those two. Duke Johnson scares me a little bit. Cleveland's offense has just been they've been bad at executing. They've gone to one guy the other week, then they've gone to another. Like Rashad Perryman was in there getting targets last week. David Njoku just does this disappearing act. It could easily happen to Duke Johnson this week. So I definitely look at Dion Lewis as a safer play, and especially like if you're making a cash game lineup. I know we're not really talking that right now, but Dion Lewis would be my preference there. I'm okay fading Duke Johnson personally, just because Nick Chubb is so involved, and like I said, Cleveland is so hard to pin down as a team offensively. So I don't mind going to Mike Davis. I mean, it's a little bit of risk because, Seattle could get behind quick in that game. They've been regressing a little bit. And then, how much work does Mike Davis get? He definitely could be involved in the pass game.
He did. He ended up with 7 catches last week.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, they're not giving Rashad Penny any work really. So I think Mike Davis is pretty safe. I think that's one way you can go. I think the other way is you just, like I said, you just go back to that 5K range and you just sort of ignore these guys. But the nice thing about Mike Davis is it's like a 1% owned play, right? Which is That's a lot of leverage. So
yeah, you just need to actively be paying attention as the 4 o'clock games start inching, and then you hear the reports come out. Maybe we'll know about Chris Carson come Sunday morning. I highly doubt that, though.
I don't think Chris Carson's going to play this week. I mean, I don't know how dumb Seattle are. Maybe they're that dumb to just keep throwing a guy who's obviously injured, not 100% out there. But, if he plays, it's a pretty bad decision. So I would guess on the side of him not playing this week. But, again, you're going to have to wait till game time. So.
The only running back garnering any interest from below $4,000 is my guy, Lizzie McGuire. He's projected around 6%. They're playing the Bills. I actually like him for some savings only because he's $3,400. That I think he'll get enough work to pay off that price. He scores a touchdown. And then all of a sudden, you're looking at a guy that could swing a week. But if you didn't want to use him, Peyton Barber only played 52% of the snaps last week for Tampa, but they got behind really early against Carolina, and that's just not the script that he's supposed to be in. Now, with Washington coming into Tampa, they're 3-point favorites. I know that he hasn't been good with Ryan Fitzpatrick under center. The only damage Peyton Barber's done all season has been with Jameis. However, it's a really good price tag. If they are winning and leading in this game, he could end up in the realm of 20 touches and garner some goal line work. I know Tampa likes to throw it when they get in close, so maybe he doesn't even get an opportunity. But it does seem like a logical flyer for the price point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, 3,500 for a guy who would get goal line touches if they ever decided to actually run down there. It does make sense. And I think the matchup is okay. I mean, Washington's a little bit banged up on both sides of the ball. So it's a really close point spread. So like you said, there's much more chance that Barber will actually get some work in this game. I don't mind it at all. There was one more player I was going to mention. Oh, yeah, no, and I don't mind the McGuire play at all. I almost took a chance on him last week at 3K. His price has come up a little bit, but it really isn't the worst spot. And again, like Isaiah Crowell's doing nothing lately. So I feel like the Jets are just going to continue to ramp up McGuire's workload. I don't hate Doug Martin either this week. He's gotten about 15 to 18. I'm just going to talk right through you, Pat. Talk right through that face. 15 to 18 touches a week since what's his name? Marshawn Lynch has gone out. He's John Gruden's boy. I mean, he likes these veterans, right? And the matchup is pretty good. The Chargers' run defense isn't good. I mean, they've been allowing over 100 yards to the running back position over the last 3 games. So, again, you expect Oakland to bounce back a little bit. If they get out, Doug Martin could easily find the end zone. It's only 4,200. You want someone to swerve off of. I don't hate it as a play. Obviously, comes with a little bit of risk, though.
I would just think my boy, Rocket Richard, will continue to outscore Doug Martin like he has in both games since Marshawn Lynch has went out. He's just the better play. And they're 10-point dogs. It's just going to be dump-off city to Richard all day.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way to play it, too. You could just be dumb like me and take the cheaper guy. I just like saving money, I guess.
Doug Martin reeks. So bad.
He hasn't been that bad.
He's bad. He's so... in fairness to him, like I thought because he was so old that he had like osteoporosis in his hip, but he was taken off the injury...
29.
He was taken off the injury report on Friday, so that's good news.
Osteoporosis.
Wide receivers... Number 1 in the FanshareSports.com tagging Marquez Valdes-Scantling is the most tagged wide receiver of the week. Then we have Josh Gordon and Tyler Boyd. They're number 2 and 3. But Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, Julio Jones, and Keenan Allen, I all have projected, along with Devontae Adams, as being in the double digits. No one can really figure out what they want to do from the very top end. I think that Michael Thomas ends up being the highest owned, but it seems like the Rams receivers are the ones that are going wildly under-owned. Like Brandon Cooks especially. Like no one's going to play him, and that's strange.
Yeah, especially because we've seen the ownership. I think people are just fed up with like trying to guess which Ram is going to go off because people are like, oh, we got to play Robert Woods this week, and then Robert Woods doesn't catch a touchdown. And then people are like, oh, Brandon Cooks in a great spot, and then he does nothing. Then the next week he goes off. So I feel like people are just fed up with the Rams wide receivers. So you're definitely going to get like low ownership to take a shot on Woods or Cooks this week, which I always like doing. I always usually bring Cooks up, but I feel like this Valdes-Scantling thing is not going to end well. Do you?
I don't know. For cash game purposes, I do like him, but I don't know if he's going to be like...
I like Corey Davis better for a cash game play,
yeah,
to be honest.
I mean, we'll get down there with him as well, but he's going to be super chalky, but he's cheaper, and more people have become disenfranchised with Corey Davis, and generally speaking, if people are going to use Dion Lewis, they're probably not going to use Corey Davis as well. So that might actually, even though the projections would have him somewhat high, I think that just one factor alone, depending on how much Dion Lewis comes in at, will suppress the Corey Davis chalk that we see. The other two guys in the 6K area that everyone's owning, Jarvis Landry, Josh Gordon. Josh Gordon's going to be super high owned. Like, honest to God, you're probably better off taking the Edelman pivot.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm not in on Josh Gordon. It's just, Brady's been so inconsistent with the downfield receivers too. And I think that's what people are overlooking. Like, people remember back to last year, and I'm not saying Brandon Cooks is the same player as Josh Gordon, but it was hit or miss production, and he didn't really have these massive breakout games. So I feel like people are overestimating the upside a little bit, and also underestimating the floor, which I think is pretty bad, especially in the spot against Tennessee. Although Tennessee's secondary isn't good, so I'll give you that. But they're a slower paced team. I don't know. I just don't like it. I just don't like chalky Josh Gordon with his price up a little bit. So that's going to be, I guess, what I'd say an easy fade for me. I do want to get exposure to these higher priced guys, especially a guy like Keenan Allen, who is going to be overlooked. I don't mind paying up for him. If Michael Thomas is going to be a little bit chalky, I think going with a guy like
Michael Thomas isn't going to be a little bit chalky. He's going to be the guy that people own at the top.
I think that's probably a good assessment. I like going down to Davante Adams. I don't know about you, but I feel like this is a really good spot for Davante Adams.
It's a decent spot for Davante Adams. This could be the one game where the Packers actually do try to run the ball a little bit, just because they're gigantic favorites at home. Maybe take some of the pressure off Rodgers and the receivers. I can see this Green Bay-Miami game playing out a lot like the Buffalo game did earlier, where it's like 22-3 or 22-0, something like that. But no one really has a gigantic day.
I mean, that's the fear, right? That's why you're going to get Davante Adams at a very low ownership.
Well, I mean, he's not even going to be very low. He'll be like 12%. Davante Adams is good. People like playing him. He always comes through.
I don't know if he'll be 12%, but yeah, he could hit around 10 or you're right. What about Tyreek Hill?
I'm playing Tyreek because he is the guy from this top end that no one really seems to want to play. But the groin injury scares me a little bit. Sammy Watkins looks like he's going to play. That probably actually helps Tyreek Hill. And a lot of people are paying up for Kelsey. Like, Kelsey's going to be the highest owned tight end, except for maybe Jack Doyle. That I don't think people will go Mahomes, Hill, and Kelsey this week. Although you should just be playing that lineup every week and bring it back this week with David Johnson, or my favorite pivot play at wide receiver, Christian Kirk. No Chad Williams. Everyone's playing Larry Fitzgerald. Christian Kirk is the guy that you want in the Cardinals receiving game if you're going to game stack that. I have no problem with Tyreek Hill. He's such a game breaker that you almost have to play him all the time.
Yeah, and in this spot, I think it's perfect, right? Because his salary's down, but no one's playing him anyways, and everyone's going to be on Hunt and Kelsey. It's like the perfect spot for the Tyreek Hill 3-touchdown game where Kelsey goes for 6 catches and 70 yards, and Hunt gets 75 yards on the ground and doesn't score, right? So I love that play. You can pair him with Mahomes or not even. I mean, you don't necessarily have to, but I like going to that play, and I also like the Christian Kirk play. I'm glad you brought him up because I probably would have forgotten about him, but yeah. No Chad Williams. Again, he's the more big play wide receiver. Obviously, he's probably not going to get the volume that Fitzgerald does, but he doesn't really need it to go off. So, and he's going to be 3%, 5% owned or something. So I like it.
If you had to guess what my projection for Marquez Valdes-Scantling is in the Millionaire Maker, percentage owned, what would you guess that number is? I have it written down on this piece of paper right here.
I'll say 35%.
I don't think we can see that. Can you see that? It says 27.2%.
Oh, okay.
The lights are too bright.
Invisible ink.
That's tough, man. That's real tough. I don't know if I can do Valdes-Scantling at 30%. I don't know if I can.
Yeah, it's like I said, it feels like a little bit of a rug pull, right? I mean, we just finished talking about how this game might be like a Miami-Buffalo situation. The Packers might be trying to run the ball. I don't know. I get it. I mean, he's a big play wide receiver. He's played well. He's played better than I thought he would in that spot. So everything's set up pretty nicely. But just don't forget, Jimmy Graham's there. The other wide receivers played well too. Equanimeous St. Brown, or however you pronounce his name. So, yeah. I'm not going to go there at 30%.
So what you can do is you can pivot onto Christian Kirk for some of those shares. You can pay down for Corey Davis, and Tyrell the Gazelle is only $4,500 too. And no one, despite producing almost every single week each of the past 3 weeks, these long touchdowns, and it's something we've seen him do in the past for the Chargers, people seem very disinterested in playing him.
Yeah, I mean, Tyrell obviously only getting 4 targets, but he's been really efficient, right? So again, it's a really good spot. I could see that game getting a little crazy if the Raiders actually score some points early, because you know, LA will have to put their foot on the gas and keep it on the gas, right? So there is a lot of pivots though from our Valdez-Scantling. We already brought up Kirk. Deshaun Jackson's in a pretty good spot. God, there's someone else I just had in my mind and I forgot. Kenny Golladay. You could go back to him. I mean, there's just that. I think that's maybe the biggest reason for fading Scantling. There's plenty of other people with just as much upside this week, so I just don't see the point really.
I mean, Allen Robinson and Taylor Gabriel are right there too. Darius Slay has already been ruled out for the Lions. That one of these guys should be able to roam free, you'd think. Yeah,
I kind of like the spot for Robinson without Darius Slay.
No one is taking Robinson.
No one's going to be on. Absolutely no one. But he was, he wasn't the big play guy for Mitch Trubisky, but he was there. He was the possession guy down the field. You could easily see 8 to 10 targets in this spot, and if he finds the end zone, I mean, it's gravy, right? So again, there's just a lot of options at that price range. I just don't think you need to eat the uber chalk in a game that might not have the greatest game flow for Valdez-Scantling. So I don't want to say easy fade, but he's going to be a fade for me.
The only 3 below 4,000 that are garnering interest, one is Maurice Harris, but I think a lot of that is contingent on whether or not Jamison Crowder plays, who has been upgraded to questionable. He's no longer doubtful. He could go this week, but he would be projected into the double digits should Jamison Crowder sit. The other one, David Moore, I have around like 6%. People seem to like him, and Doug Baldwin's banged up. Just you start taking pieces out of the Seattle offense, and it just kind of helps concentrate towards everyone, and he's been the guy they've been targeting towards the red zone. The other one's John Ross, who I didn't think people would actually be on, but he makes too much sense in this spot. I mean, he's a 0 waiting to happen, but he's also 25 points on 3 catches.
Yeah, John Ross, a little bit scary. I'm a little bit surprised, too. People are willing to go there. I don't think I'm going to take the chance. Asking a lot for a player just to come off basically not playing and then just walk in and like take over a significant role. I feel like the Bengals will just use their tight ends more. I think CJ Azuma could get involved, and obviously Tyler Boyd's in a big spot. He's going to get a lot of coverage, but I don't know. I guess I see, the price is okay to take a shot on Ross, but I'm not all over it or anything like that.
He is the perfect type of guy to take the shot on down here. Like someone like Maurice Harris, that even if Crowder doesn't play, you're dealing with a floor that you hope is built in, that you see 7 to 10 targets. He piles up 7 to 10 receptions because they're low ADOT plays. With John Ross, if he's just starting on the outside and he's playing 80% of the snaps, he's basically running 9 routes down the field every single time the ball is snapped.
Yeah, I like David Moore better. I know you already brought him up. He doesn't look super chalky, but he could guard like 6% ownership. That's fine. I just think it's a good spot against the Rams. Secondary, obviously Tyler Lockett draws some coverage over, and Doug Baldwin is banged up, and Moore's kind of been the better player, although he had a couple drops last week. But they're still going to him, right? And he's actually been a pretty big red zone target for them. So I like Moore a little bit better than Ross. But again, you're right. The appeal is there with Ross because of the price. It's an increased usage spot, and he's like a 4-2 guy, right? So.
Yeah, he's the sort of GPP play that you like. He's going to be 0 or he's going to be 25, and you hope the 25 hits when you have him. DJ Chark's kind of like that as well. He's just a burner that maybe you get lucky in that Indianapolis game if Indy jumps out and Bortles just starts bombing it down the field. He seems to have surpassed Keelan Cole on the depth chart, so his snaps have been increasing every single week. The two that I like from down here, if you're going to roll the dice, Tajay Sharp looks like he's over that injury that really limited him on Monday night. It does not look like Tywan Taylor is going to play. If you want to get off Corey Davis or some of these Titans, it's a really good spot for him against this New England secondary. And the one that I really like is my guy. You like Doug Martin. Give me Brandon LaFell-Sexwell. All this guy does is stand on the field for the Raiders, and they're going to be passing all the time. And he's too old and too slow to run down the field, so he's in the Derek Carr wheelhouse.
That's right. Yeah, the 4-yard out wheelhouse for Derek Carr. Yeah, it is kind of the same argument as Brandon LaFleur as Doug Martin, right? I mean, the Raiders have to throw and run with someone, and I mean these guys are going to get volume whether we like it or not. So, no, Quincy Enunwa doesn't look like Robbie Anderson's going to play. I like the spot for Quincy with Josh McCown. I don't know about you, but yeah, I actually really like that play this week. I almost forgot to bring him up, but another player sort of in the same mold as John Ross, obviously not like a 4-2 guy, but he's really solid after the catch and capable of breaking like a 50-yard touchdown or something, especially against the crappy Bills. So yeah, I don't mind Quincy Enunwa either. He should get a ton of targets this week.
My worry would be, I don't know who they're going to start on the outside opposite of Enunwa now, but I think the Curse would end up playing in the slot. But if Enunwa is out there, I would imagine Tre'Davious White would have shadowed Robbie Anderson. Now he does with Quincy Enunwa, and that would leave more for like Jermaine Kearse and Chris Herndon IV to do stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Enunwa does. They do move him around a lot, like from the slot, and sometimes even line him up in the backfield and stuff like that. So it's a little bit of a concern for sure, but I just have a lot of respect for Enunwa. Like I think he's a number one receiver skill wise. After the catch, he can make things happen. So even in a bad matchup like that, I think with the better quarterback and the volume that he should get with Anderson out, I think it's actually a really good spot. And yeah, you can be like 1% owned probably.
Quarterbacks, tagging system per fansharesports.com. Number 1 is Phillip Rivers. Number 2, Ryan Fitzmagic. Number 3, Baker Mayfield. That doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun. I have Jared Goff and Patrick Mahomes also as above 7% ownership in the Millionaire Maker. Generally, though, like no one is going to be uber chalky, so I don't think ownership really plays a factor here. Just take the quarterback that you like. I'm surprised that Marcus Mariota isn't garnering more buzz, though, because I felt like he was going to be the buzz guy coming into the week, and I had little interest in that. But now that no one's on him, I'm like, it's not a bad spot.
I think it's a good spot. He's played well the last 2 weeks. I mean, he seems like he's turned a bit of a corner, and not just from like his play wise, but I think his health issues are behind him too. People forget he was really banged up at the start of the year. He's looked more like the Marcus Mariota that, a little bit more efficient, doesn't quite turn it over as much. So yeah, I'm a little surprised too, because I looked at this price and the week and I'm like, he's playing the Patriots. It's a really big game total. And something else to consider, quarterbacks going up against the Patriots, they've averaged 45 pass attempts over the last 5 games. So I know Tennessee doesn't throw much, but in this spot, it says Marcus Mariota is probably going to throw like at least 35 times. I was shocked at his price. So I really like the spot. I think it's a spot where you can pair him with Corey Davis and Dion Lewis and fill out the rest of your lineup with studs. So I'm all over it. He's probably my favorite QB play of the week, which is pretty risky, but definitely on it.
I guess the other one from down there, too, if you want to pay down, he's only $4,700. Blake Bortles, you could take the shot on against Indy. As I talked about earlier, I wouldn't use Bortles and Fournette together, but as a tournament play, if the pace remains what we've seen from the Colts throughout the course of the season, I think the last 2 games with Indianapolis hasn't really been indicative of what they get up to, because they blew out the Bills and they blew out the Raiders. This game, regardless of what you think about Jacksonville, probably isn't going to follow that same script, so it's going to be up pace, up tempo the entire time. Like Andrew Luck's actually my favorite per price dollar guy of the week at quarterback, but I might have a few lineups where I have Blake Bortles as well.
I don't mind. Yeah, Blake definitely, like you said, it's a good matchup from a pace perspective. And the thing about Blake is, and this gets beaten to death sometimes, but he brings the rushing upside. Like he averages over 30 yards rushing per game. That's huge, because it creates these games where he, instead of getting 23 points, he gets 28 points, right? I mean, you look at his game log, he's got 3 games with like 28 points or more. And yeah, the rest all suck, but that doesn't matter. I mean, we're talking about GPP targets, right? So that's what you want from a quarterback. And Mitch Trubisky is another guy who's going to be like 1% owned. Same thing. Just an excellent runner. When he goes off, he really does go off. And both those guys are going to be, ignored this week in pretty good spots, to be honest. So.
Yeah, I actually like Mitch Trubisky a bunch. I think this is a great pay down week. I always play Mahomes lineups because Mahomes, and why wouldn't you? It seems kind of crazy. Yeah. Like he has game breaking slight ability that you need to use. You have to have some exposure to Patrick Mahomes almost every single week, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, at this point, I mean, like you need to have some kind of Chiefs stack, right? Like Mahomes and Tyreek or Kelsey and Mahomes, or the Hunt and the defense or something. You need Chiefs exposure, right? So getting a Mahomes stack is definitely worthwhile. But yeah, again, looking at these cheap QBs for other lineups, Trubisky, Bortles, and Mariota. That's where I'm going this week.
Tight ends, the top three in the tagging system so far this week. We have Travis Kelce coming in at number 1, Jack Doyle at number 1, Kelce at number 2, Ben Watson at number 3. And Dez wasn't going to play anyway, but I thought that it looks like Dez is going to be out for the year, but he wasn't going to play week 10 regardless. And I thought that Ben Watson would be the guy that he took away the most from. So I have no real interest in playing a chalky Ben Watson because it could be Josh Hill this week, or Zach Line punches in a 1-yard score. That I don't love him in a spot where he's not 1% owned. He's a great guy to take a flyer on because of the offense. Once everyone starts piling on and playing him, probably a pretty good fade. Kelce, you're going to play. He's going to be over 10%, and you're going to have to deal with it. The two that I have projected as the highest, Doyle around 15%, Njoku around 10%. Do you have feelings about either one of those guys? Because I think I would still prefer to play Njoku over Doyle.
Yeah, it's a tough week at tight end.
I have the solution to your tight end problems, by the way.
Oh, okay. I'll throw. I think I like Njoku as well over Doyle. It's just Ebron's getting the red zone targets, right? So, but I want to hear your solution because, I don't really have anything definitive at tight end to throw out. So throw it at me.
Instead of playing like a 12% Ben Watson this week, you just pay up. What is it, $300, and use CJ Uzomah, which people are playing John Ross, people are playing Tyler Boyd because this passing game, it's going to be so concentrated. Why not take the tight end? The guy who was doing a ton until the last time we saw him had 0 points. Now everyone hates his guts. He's useless. Come on. It's tight end. This is a nice spot against a team where they're probably going to have to throw the ball 45 times. He's constantly going to be on the field, and no one's owning him. That seems silly. And the other one is Ricky Seals-Jones. He played his most snaps of the year with Byron Leftwich as offensive coordinator. They're going to throw, 97,000 times against the Chiefs? Why not take the shot?
Yeah, Ricky Seals-Jones is interesting at only 3K. I agree. It's just because of the matchup, right? Like you said, Josh Rosen's going to have to throw it at least 45 times, you'd think, in this game. So, 3K, I'm in on that. Chiefs have been terrible at covering tight ends. And Uzomah, I brought him up when we talked about John Ross. He's the more trustworthy target. So without A.J. Green, I expect him to get more volume. Now, John Ross might get a couple more shots downfield. I understand that. But Uzomah's the guy I would expect to see more targets. So I like that. I like that call. Because I just don't really have a lot of faith. Maybe just going back to OJ Howard, but God, 5,300 now for OJ Howard just seems like overpayments. So I don't hate the idea of using Logan Thomas at 2,600. Charles plays out. I know.
Well, now, what if we get into a circumstance where Josh Allen plays and it's not Nate the Great?
Yeah, I don't know. That's the thing. I don't really know what Josh Allen does for Logan. Maybe it actually helps him, right? Because he's actually been able to move the ball more. So maybe Logan Thomas gets, a red zone target, better chance of scoring a touchdown, maybe a couple less targets. But I guess my point is, if you're going to go down that route and really want to just target a min-price guy, that's probably the one I would go with. Because I think Logan Thomas at this point is probably an upgrade over Charles Clay. So
the thing is, if we're going to be spending $2,800 or $3,000, I think I would just rather go with Ricky Seals-Jones over Logan Thomas.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's one of those throw it out there plays for guys who just I set my lineup and I want a min price tight end. That's probably where I would go. But I agree. I think Ricky Seals-Jones, if he can get up there, that's where I would go. The game flow there should just be perfect for him, and he is going to share a little bit of targets with Larry Fitzgerald. But again, you'd expect the Chiefs to shift coverage over to Fitzgerald and leave him open for a few more targets.
Defenses, before we get out of here and talk a few of the spreads, the number 1 tag defense per FanShareSports.com of the week, no surprise, the New York Jets. Number 2, the Packers. Number 3, the Rams, although the Jets and Bills are actually projected to be the 2 highest owned special teams and defenses of the week. Now, we're going to get Josh McCown on one side of the ball. I think that's worse for the Bills defense. I think the Jets are better with Josh McCown, so I don't love the Bills as much, although the offensive line and especially the center play for the Jets has been so atrocious that the Bills do have a very good pass rush that maybe they can get in the backfield and disrupt a little bit. But I don't know how much obviously, if Peterman plays, you play the Jets, although I have them projected at 20%, which is just crazy. But if it's Josh Allen, do you think people will go off of the Jets, or will they just say, screw it, Josh Allen sucks too?
I think people stay on the Jets. You might bump them down like 1% or 2%. At least that's my feeling. I don't think this is like, oh, well, we got to get the Josh Allen. I think most people are just like, the Bills suck, so the Jets are in a good spot. I'm going to play them anyways. There might be a few people who sharp their way out of it or whatever. But I think the Jets will stay highly owned regardless who starts at quarterback. That's my feeling anyways. I definitely agree on the McCown thing for the Bills. I want no part of it. I think they would have been a great play with Sam Darnold starting, but obviously he's not going to. McCown is just a better game manager, probably a better player right now. So I'm in on the Packers personally. That's where I would go. I know it's going to be slightly chalky, but one of the best pass rushes in the league. They've been way better at home. They're averaging like 12 DK points over 4 home games. The Dolphins' offense is not good. I mean, they barely beat the Jets last week, and Brock Osweiler's still the quarterback there. So I think if you're going to get them at a lower, like even as like the third highest owned, I think that's good. I think the upside and the floor there is really solid.
Yeah, I'm big on the Packers D as well. I have them at 12.5% at the moment. The other ones you could potentially take a shot on. I think Indy is intriguing just against Jacksonville because Blake Bortles plays quarterback for them. That could always be a nice recipe for some pick sixes.
Yep.
The Chiefs, I'm surprised, aren't coming in higher owned in a game where you're going to have Josh Rosen, like we said, passing like 40 to 50 times, that maybe they can turn one of those into a pick six and boom, you're on your way. Or you could pay all the way down. I'm always a sucker for the Lions because of their pass rush, but the Bucks, the cheapest D on the board, $2,000. This Washington offense looks bad, and they're down 3 offensive linemen.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Good thing to throw out. I don't mind the Saints down there too, just because their defense has been coming on. But I think I prefer the Bucks too in a home game against a team like you said with O-line problems, right? So and Chris Thompson not really 100% either.
Chris Thompson is out. Yeah, no. Chris Thompson has been ruled out for the week.
Yeah, okay, so he's completely been ruled out. So there you go. Again, they're down offensive weapons. They have like no receivers. Yeah, it actually makes a lot of sense. Gerald McCoy's back too for Tampa. Like I know their secondary is not good, but again, the Redskins don't really throw to their wide receivers, so it actually makes quite a bit of sense when you think about it. The Bucks are very, very in play this week, yeah, for sure.
So let's close this out. Any spreads that you're looking at or totals? There's been a shift in a few of them, like. The Eagles dropped from 6.5 to 7. I still really like the 7. That was my super lock this week. I think the Eagles go lay a beatdown on the Cowboys on Sunday night coming off of that bye week. But everything else has been kind of steady Eddie. When the Bills were 7-point dogs when Darnold was starting, when McCown got announced the winner, they dropped to 6.5. I took the 6.5 for the Jets then, but now that's back up to 7. Saints and Bengals has turned from 4.5 into 6. So the Bengals are 6-point dogs at home. The Browns are 6-point dogs at home against the Falcons, but it's strange. Usually you see a lot of big shifts. The Monday Nighter's gone to 3.5 for the 49ers, which I don't love. I like that at the 3 number. You don't like that hook in there. That could be, takes away a lot of your push potential, but is there any game that you like on the board?
I mean, I'm kind of with you mostly on these games. Like I have KC just destroying Arizona, so like a 16.5 just looks too small. If you can get 16.5, I think that's fine, quite frankly. In that game, you're expecting Arizona to put up some points, and they just haven't proven that they can do it consistently. I mean, they got, I think, shut out by the Rams. I know KC's defense isn't quite maybe as good, but I don't mind that spread. I like Indy too. I think they're being disrespected, actually. Only 3 points. Indianapolis has been the better team. Jacksonville's been horrible at covering spreads this year. I think they're both coming off buys, so I think Indy is definitely one of my favorite lines. Like only 3, I really feel like that should be at least 4.5 or 5 points even, given the way Indy's taking care of business the last couple weeks. And I think I'm with you on the Jets too, and Philly actually. But actually, yeah, of those two, I think I'd probably prefer the Jets with McNown, but definitely don't mind taking the points. I guess it's a lot of favorites this week. It almost kind of feels like last week, so maybe we'll get the rug pulled out from under us and all these underdogs will cover. I don't mind Cleveland at home either. Kind of getting sick of like trying to bet the Browns or time the Browns right, but does kind of feel like a pretty good spot. The plus 4.5 at home.
It's plus 6 now.
Oh, is it up to plus 6?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, I love that.
And the money's still coming in on the Falcons. Like that line is moving because all the money, like 77% of cash is on the Falcons this week. 89% of bets placed have been on the Falcons. The one that I kind of like, because this line's not moving, despite the fact that the money is in one place and one place only. I kind of like the Raiders plus 10.
Yeah, yeah. It's a game I'm not going to touch, but I can see the appeal. Like I said, I guess when we were talking about the fantasy players, I mean, the Chargers' run defense hasn't been that good. They've gotten in kind of shootouts. I mean, they almost lost to San Francisco, like another crappy team. So they have played down to their opponents in spots. And again, generally in these places, you see these teams that just get embarrassed, bounce back pretty well. Now the Raiders seem like their own special case, but I can see some appeal. I'm not going to touch it personally, but I can see the appeal. I also don't mind the Packers since they're up to 10. I like them more like 9.5, but I still see them blowing out Miami.
That is the one where the most money of the week on any one side rests. 94% of all bets taken have been on the Packers, which is kind of scary.
It's scary, and I was just going to say that's why I'm almost for sure not going to bet it. But if I really had to, like gun to my head, I'd probably just take the Packers and go with the public.
It's strange in that aspect too, only because the chalk has been hitting. He's got like 94% of the money the last 3 weeks. That just hits, and Vegas is getting taken. So it feels like it's going to swing back here eventually.
Yeah, and that's why I mentioned off the top. Like, it does feel like we might be due for one of those underdog weeks. If another underdog, I don't mind. I don't mind the Titans.
Neither do I.
6.5. Obviously, you can wait and see if that line gets pushed to 7 because everyone loves the Patriots, but. I really don't mind the Titans as big underdogs at home. They've been good at keeping games close. Like I said, Marcus Mariota playing better. I don't mind that as an underdog spot.
Yeah, if you did like Browns, Bengals, Titans, Raiders, the 4 big home dogs of the week, you probably, I mean, I said this last week with the 2 giant home dogs that you probably come out with a split, but it seems like all the money is still on those big favorites that it'll flip eventually.
Yeah, that's true, and we'll see what happens. But like I said, if that line gets up to 7 in Tennessee, I don't mind going there at all.
Okay, I want to let everyone know the odds and lines are subject to change, so check the website for actual odds. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Jeff Ulrich, thank you for being on the line. Where can everyone check out your works? Yeah, for sure. Check out the DK Playbook. Obviously, a bunch of good articles up there. My high-end GPP picks for the week article already up there. You can find out who to fade if you want to go that route, or who to play, and come along with the ride for me. But also make sure you download the DK Live app if you haven't already. It's an awesome app. I won't even tell you about it. Just download it. You should. You can catch this show and every Pat Mayo experience up on the DK Live app as well, along with short videos, the DFS Edge podcast. It's all just the home of all the multimedia and just the scoring system. You get to see all the DraftKings points that come through. You get play-by-play. I think they're sponsored with TuneIn, and you can listen to the games live on the radio. It's pretty fantastic. Before we get out of here, are you scared of my pick of Matt Kuchar to win this tournament could happen? Is he still in the lead? He's up by 2 with a hole to go as we record. Oh, he's up by 2. All right. Kuchar's overdue, but I do feel like he's going to get to Sunday and might pull the old Matt Kuchar special. But I know we'll see what happens. Hey, I'm rooting for you. I bet one guy in that tournament. It was Patrick Rogers, and he shot like 7 times yesterday. So I blacklisted him. It's November. I'm already blacklisting golfers, but. Definitely will be on the Kuchar cheering section for you this week. He is due for a win. Like, his last one was 2014. That's a long time even for Kuchar. So yeah, he hasn't won in 4 years, and that win was at Heritage, and that was a corollary course to the venue at Mayakoba. So hopefully it all comes through for Big Cooch. Maybe he can find another one here on 18. Now, at least my guy. I mean, I had the 3 big picks. I picked him. I picked Neiman, and I picked who was the other guy? Billy Ho. And Billy Ho is like 10 birdies today, but he keeps making stupid bogeys. Stupid Billy Ho. He's you know what? Billy Ho paid off for me. He landed me a top 5 at like pretty big odds right before he went on his run. But people who were chasing that win, didn't quite get it done. But Kuchar is definitely the value play this week. I mean, what is he, like 60, 70 to 1? Yeah, he was 66 to 1. Yeah, that's great odds for Matt Kuchar. That's where you want to take Matt Kuchar. So. All right. that'll do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. Go Matt Kuchar! For Jeff Ulrich, I'm Pat Mayo. You can follow me at ThePME, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Remember to tune in Sunday morning, live, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Myself, The Cust, and Garion will be in studio breaking down all the latest injuries, going over all the games, making our picks, and taking your questions. Get your lineup set for Week 10. Smash the like button on the way out, too. Don't forget to do that. I'm Pat Mayo. Good luck in Week 10. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!